Thank you, Carl. Before starting, I would like to comment that in this presentation, you will see some of the aspects that's been touched in previous presentations, and I'm very pleased with that because effectively it's showing that Ecopetrol is moving in a direction that other companies would wish to have in the environment or the country they're investing. Also, I would like to comment, Ecopetrol is a national oil company which has a very particular condition when Ecopetrol explores and produces in Colombia. We are, as any other company that invests in Colombia, we compete with all companies in the same terms. And also for our regulators, and, National Hydrocarbon Agency, we are one competitor more. So to some extent, we understand very well the position of the different companies that invest in Colombia, and we help the industry develop the business inside Colombia, being one more actor, but also having the role of being the national oil company in terms of securing the energetic supply for Colombia. This is for me to show and for you to read. And I know that nobody reads it, but basically, journalists, it's important to have that when they see the presentation. The presentation is divided in three main topics. I will start with new opportunities in Colombia. Now, this presentation is from the perspective of Ecopetrol as a national oil company. So new business will be related to what we are doing currently in Colombia, the different aspects we are developing in terms of production, exploration, and new opportunities. Basically, I will go through the goals we have in the following years up to 2020, and the three main lines we are developing to achieve those goals. In the second point, I will talk about how partnership has evolved based on a new contractual framework that was established a few years ago, either with national oil companies investing in Colombia as also independents and the regional players in Colombia, and how Ecopetrol has a role in the development of the oil business in Colombia. No? And I will end that part showing the different actors that are in Colombia and basically what they're targeting from the E&P point of view. And I will close with the third point where I will develop the strategy Ecopetrol is developing in order to achieve its goal. I will start with who is Ecopetrol, what kind of company, where we are working, what we are developing in Colombia, what we can provide the different companies, and how we can support different actors in order to achieve their goals and establish as I mentioned, a win-win relationship, and where we have our main interests, and finally the challenges, and summarize the 3 points. Okay, so let me start with what are our goals until 2020. So our strategic plan has established in particular that in terms of the production goal, we plan to achieve a production of 1.3 million barrels of oil equivalent production per day by 2020. Basically, we established an informal trademark of calling clean barrels, clean barrels, basically with no incidents, no accidents, no environmental incidents, sound labor relationships with all the stakeholders, delivering commitments to our stakeholders, and a 17% return over investment in the projects we developed. As you can see, in terms of investment, up to 2020, we have a plan of investing of the order of $75 billion that are concentrated 85% in exploration and production, 15% is in the other lines we develop, refining, transport, and 3% in biofuels and others. Quarter of our capital investment until 2020 is for exploration, and over half of that is in production. As you can see, that makes an average of about $10 billion per year in investment. The three lines that we are developing to achieve those goals are presented here in this figure. So we have in the first, on the top of the barrel, we have what are the existing fields that are in production, mainly in Colombia. In second, the exploration projects we are developing. And finally, we started to develop a branch in unconventionals, mainly in Colombia. In terms of the production, what we are seeking is to increase the recovery factors of the field. We have, you will see a little bit further, that we have an average of about 18% of recovery factor in all the fields we have in Colombia. And we have a significant amount of resources in heavy oil, which has a very low recovery factor. And in terms of exploration, what we are doing is working on the different basins in Colombia. From one side, on the mature basins, where we have production since 60 more years. We have the foreland, we have the foothills in Colombia, where we are currently exploring. And also we started to develop an international investment in terms of going outside of Colombia and adding opportunities to our portfolio in exploration-wise in order to increase our production. The international part also has been established and developed in order to increase our knowledge in the different aspects that interest us, developing fields, and also in terms of exploration, because we do have frontier basins also in Colombia that we are starting to explore. And finally, in terms of unconventional, what we've done so far is starting assessing the potential of the unconventional resources we have in the country. Basically, we've drilled so far 4 wells with unconventional target. And what we started to do, and we have already established, is a series of joint venture with strategic partners in order to ensure the aspects that we don't today understand very well or have not developed in terms of unconventionals. If I develop a little bit more in each one of these aspects, in terms of what are the opportunities of increasing recovery factors, today, as I mentioned, we have in the average 18% recovery factor on the different fields in Colombia. And the fields add up to about 50 billion barrels of oil equivalent that we have in those fields. We have 3 aspects that we are developing currently in order to increase the oil recovery factor. And the first thing is primary recovery with infill drilling in most of the fields we have in the Middle Magdalena Valley, which is pointed out as the number 1, and also in what is the Llanos Basin, which is pointed out there as number 3. That's basically the foreland and in the Llanos Basin. On the other side, what we have in second place is a non-thermal recovery, secondary recovery, basically through water flooding, chemical enhanced oil recovery, and some gas injection. And this is targeted mainly in what are the Mid-Magdalena Valley and the Upper Magdalena Valley, which are the numbers 1 and 2, which have had historic production since a few decades. And finally, we have, in the case of the heavy oil fields that are mainly in the foreland in number 3 Llanos Basin, we have the thermal recovery through basically steam injection projects that we are developing in our Caño Sur field, and also in situ combustion that we've started some pilot projects in what is Rubiales and Chichimene. In terms of exploration, Ecopetrol in Colombia is widely spread on practically all the basins in Colombia, as you can see on the map. And I will mention, and I will focus mainly on 4 of those areas where we have identified high potential in terms of new resources. The Llanos, with number 1 shown on the figure, is the area where we are currently exploring for heavy oil. And in fact, last year we announced a new discovery with our partner Talisman Energy, where we discovered a field that today has an estimate of the order of 1.3 billion barrels of oil in place. And our current exploration program, we expect to, if we are successful, double that figure. In the Putumayo-Caguán Basin, number 2, it's a more frontier area where we are working. Excuse me, I forgot to mention, all these are the blocks where we are currently either owning 100% or partnering with other companies. In the Caguán Basin, number 2, what we're doing is exploring for opportunities that are in the southern area. This is a sub-explored basin, essentially due to all the historic problems of security and problems with access to the area, which have improved significantly in the last years. And what we are trying to do there is extend the exploration, the success trend that we have in the Oriente Basin in Ecuador. Number 3, in the Llanos foothill, well, this is the basically continuing with the exploration of the foothills, which has a very high complexity in terms of imaging, but we still identify that we have a significant potential in all the foothills of the Colombian Andes, where we had the discovery and the field developed by BPM partners, Cusiana and Cupiagua. Finally, number 4, it's a new start that we started with partners exploring the offshore Caribbean, and currently we are on the we have the plan to drill 2 wells offshore this year, and next year in 2015 4 more wells exploring the Caribbean, which is another frontier area which is completely underexplored in Colombia. In terms of internationally, we have positions more than 4.5 million hectares in the Gulf of Mexico, US waters, and Brazil and Peru, to strengthen all of our portfolio. In terms of unconventional, different studies have, it has been discussed a little bit here, and different studies have spanned worldwide opportunities of unconventionals. Colombia has also been part of the countries analyzed, and it's been identified a very high potential in terms of initially what was gas shale. We've worked since about 3 years on unconventional, drilling the first wells, targeting La Luna Formation, which is a very good source rock known worldwide. And we've in fact changed the concept of having gas shale to really having the possibility of having liquids associated with the La Luna Formation. We have very advantageous situation in the middle Magdalena Valley, which is here highlighted as the one with the highest potential, between 13 to 30 TCFs, where we've been present for a long time. And in the recent years, different international companies have positioned themselves also to explore this area for unconventionals, as Exxon, Conoco, and Shell. And as you see, as it's mentioned also, Ecopetrol has a major land position in these areas because these are the historical, let's say, fields that have been developed in Colombia. And to close on the unconventional, we have some potential also on coal-bedded methane, which is shown in the orange dots there, in different in other basins in the country. The second point, I'll talk about how the relationship between Ecopetrol and other companies has been developed. And to start with, I will mention Colombia had a change about 10 years ago, where the contractual framework was changed. And this boosted investment in Colombia. And Ecopetrol was part of that story. The advantage or the change in contractual terms, what did is establish that all companies compete on the same basis, including Ecopetrol as a national oil company. And it's a competitive royalty structure. We have two type of contracts in place, E&P contracts and also technical evaluation area models, which improve investor risk reward. The ANH, the National Agency of Hydrocarbons, has a regular basis of putting up bidding rounds in order to award acreage. And also Colombia is very attractive because the institutional framework is very stable. The contractual terms are respected. And as I mentioned, Ecopetrol is a very attractive partner because knows the industry, knows the country, and can provide a lot of advantages to the companies investing in Colombia. How did this impact the industry in Colombia? Since 2007, what we've seen is an increase in terms of oil production. Oil production has doubled since 2007, going up to over 1 million barrels of production in the country. We are the 4th producer of oil in Latin America. And the number of contracts signed with different companies has been tripling per year. The other aspect is, in terms of reserves, what has happened in the last 5 years, the country reserves have increased about 68%, as shown in the graph on the bottom, going from 2 billion barrels up to 3.3 billion, almost 3.4 billion barrels of oil, gas. In terms of actors, all this change has attracted a series of different companies to invest in Colombia. And as you can see here, we range from majors to national oil companies, independents, and also some regional players. And the focus varies according to the strategy of the different companies, but basically it's offshore, unconventionals, and some actors are onshore. Mainly the regional actors, smaller size companies are onshore. And finally, the last point in terms of its strategy, Ecopetrol is developing to maximize the value in the E&P business. I will start by pointing out here the different aspects that Ecopetrol develops in the country. So we are an integrated oil and gas company, and we range from the E&P down to refining, petrochemicals, transport, and also alternative energies. We are the national oil company of Colombia. We do our main business in Colombia, but as I mentioned before, we do have positions in Brazil and the US, Peru, and if things work out, we'll take a new position in the following weeks or months internationally. We have a diversified portfolio of about more than 22 million hectares in positions. Our production is of the order a little bit below 788,000 barrels of oil per day, equivalent per day, which represents fairly 2/3 of the production of Colombia. And in terms of reserves, we own 1.97 billion barrels of oil. That represents the 64% of the proven Colombian reserves. Uh, as I showed before, in terms of the different aspects we are dealing with in order to fulfill our goals, the challenges are basically in the same, shown here, are basically in the same three aspects in terms of adding production and reserves, but also in the last point is to guarantee that production can be sustained, securing the solutions for transport, and enforcing an open access scheme to all the facilities for production. In terms of enhanced oil recovery, basically what we're looking for is to be able to produce all the resources we have currently identified from mainly heavy oil fields through water injections and the thermal technologies. The aspect I already mentioned in terms of offshore, we require, of course, partners to help us develop the knowledge and bring to the country the technologies for offshore operations, which we are starting to develop in the exploration we've conducted offshore in the Caribbean waters. And of course, the unconventionals, as the industry has moved towards identifying the potential and unlocking the resources in what are called unconventional plays. Colombia has to solve a series of issues related to regulations, but also identify or assess the correct potential or the right potential in terms also to establish business with different companies coming to work on unconventionals. And as I mentioned, we passed from a gas shale play into today an oil shale play, on a significant amount of liquids associated to the shales in La Luna Formation. The challenges, in summary, the challenges we have as a country and as a company are summarized in the 6 bullets you see here, starting with, of course, overcoming environmental and community issues, which are not strange to the companies working in Colombia. Colombia is a very populated country, so we have to work very closely with community, regional governments, the national government, the different organizations in society. We have also ONGs. I'm not sure if that's and environmental also groups. And basically we've learned and we've developed a strategy there of working together with the different groups in order to ensure a correct development of the projects. As I mentioned previously, we need to apply new technologies or adapt technologies in order to have enhanced oil recovery in the current fields producing. And one of the aspects basically in the heavy oil field is also to learn to manage or be able to manage high water production we have in these fields. Of course, one of the aspects that Ecopetrol works on is making or helping the governmental agencies and regulators to keep Colombia as a reliable, attractive, safe country for investments in the hydrocarbon industry. In summary, Colombia, I would say it's clear that it provides important opportunities for the industry in conventional and also unconventional, and basically enhance that all companies are treated the same as Ecopetrol. Ecopetrol has been part of a history development of the industry, so we have a very strong knowledge in how to manage environmental, social issues, and also help regulate. Even though we are not the regulator, we help sensibilize the regulators in terms of what the industry is. As I mentioned, we have presence overall the country, and the most important aspects we want to develop in order to attain our goals is increasing recovery factors, developing the onshore heavy oil, offshore exploration, and also unconventional. And finally, of course, as has been mentioned previously, the goals are achieved with a substantial challenge, and which requires the participation of different actors, and in that sense, of course, we seek partners, and we partner with different companies that have the same interest in growing and with the same goals of Ecopetrol. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting tour of Colombia's interesting upstream. Would you like to join me for a
yes.
second?
I'm going to avoid questions.
I just want to establish whether anybody has any questions. I was going to quickly start off with a question which must come up now and then, which is the security which you alluded to. And I understand, if I read correct reports or not, that there have been 33 attacks on pipelines in the last year or so. And what is the situation at the moment? And if any of our audience are interested in taking part in a partnership with Ecopetrol, what kind of assurances can you give your partners that the situation is not going to lead to danger to themselves or danger to the environment?
Well, the different attacks that have been happening in Colombia, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not new, but it's happened in the past. We have developed them, and the industry has developed in Colombia with that situation since the industry started. I'm exaggerating, but basically it's been an issue for many years. Ecopetrol, and also in conjunction with the Army, has been able to control this to some extent. So production is affected. I mean, it has an effect on production, but in general, we have established a mechanism in order to ensure that production is not, we don't lose too much production in terms of the days and the time we take to repair the different pipelines. No, we have some issues that come out, and it's not strange for anybody. We had like a month of a pipeline that was out about a month ago, and well, it took us. That was a time it took us not to repair from the blowout of the pipeline, but in order to negotiate with the community, in order to access the area where we had to repair. But this is an effort that is done by Ecopetrol and also the government. So we jointly work out these issues: government, the Army, and also the industry. In general, it affects, of course. I mean, if we wouldn't have these problems, production would be even higher. But we solve them.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Fuenzalida? Here's your opportunity. Or about Colombia upstream. One in front. Have we got a microphone?
Thank you. Bruno from ANCAP. Thank you very much for your presentation. And we saw that you are expanding outside Colombia. And we would like to know if that exploration that you are doing in other countries is by yourself or partnering with other companies.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, in fact, we're partnering. We have a strategy to position ourselves outside of Colombia with, let's say, selected partners that have been able to, that have a confirmed success. We have a very close relationship with companies that have invested in Colombia, and then we've looked for opportunities outside with them. And also, we've partnered with different companies outside to bring them into Colombia at the same time. Now, normally, Ecopetrol, when we are investing outside of Colombia, our exposure is controlled. So normally, we don't take, let's say, we can go up to 50%. We've taken partnerships 30%, or in areas that are more frontier areas, we go down to 15%, 10%. But usually we partner with other companies. We have strategic partners. We also look to establish partnership with some companies that we would like to develop other businesses or access other areas.
Okay, well, unless there's another question, I think we'll leave it there. And thank you very much for that excellent presentation. Thank you.